I woke up to the sound of my front door unlocking from the outside. Metal clacking against metal, a cheerful humming voice, and the distinct smell of cucumber melon lotion wafting under the door jamb. When I swung the door open, there stood a woman dragging a rolling suitcase the size of a tombstone and carrying a tote bag labeled Board Business in glitter letters. "Good morning, Connor," she chirped with unsettling enthusiasm. Per section 14, subsection me, I will be moving in today. Behind her stood a man in a neon safety vest, our HOA's self-appointed safety liaison, holding a welcome doormat that read "This house obeys" in bold letters. My coffee went cold in my hand. I did not know whether to call the police or a priest. My name is Connor Vale, and I live what I thought was a quiet life in Sycamore Glen. 2 bedrooms, too many succulents on the windowsills, and a mortgage that behaves when I do. I am the kind of guy who alphabetizes his spice rack and waves at neighbors without bothering to learn their dogs' names. I water my plants on schedule, I mow diagonal stripes in my lawn, and I have never once played music loud enough to penetrate drywall. Enter Bonnie Harker, HOA president, hobby tyrant, and a woman who treats neighborhood bylaws like sacred scripture carved into stone tablets. Our first real interaction happened when she cited me for what she called aggressive basil. My herb plant had apparently spilled over the garden bed by exactly 1 inch. She measured it 3 times with a ruler while I watched from my kitchen window in disbelief. After that incident, small fines started appearing like dandelions after spring rain. Non-compliant wind chimes, even though I did not own wind chimes. Window tint tone violation for curtains she claimed were beige when the approved color was tan. A mailbox font infraction because I used Helvetica instead of the recommended Arial. I paid them, protested politely through the proper channels, attended a board meeting where Bonnie lectured me about community cohesion for 20 minutes, and retreated back to my calm existence. I even changed my mailbox font, though I still think Helvetica is objectively superior. Then her husband left her, taking the dog and the patio furniture. The board members started resigning one by one, citing personal reasons that definitely included Bonnie's increasingly bizarre behavior. And suddenly Bonnie was everywhere, like glitter and disappointment combined into human form. The moving in stunt did not come out of nowhere. It started about 3 months earlier with nightly wellness checks where she would shine a flashlight directly into my living room window to verify occupant vitality, as she put it. The first time it happened, I thought someone was trying to break in. I called 911. The operator told me it was just my HOA president and hung up with what I swear was a sympathetic sigh. She began stapling pink notices to my door with titles like Urgent Occupancy Corrections, accusing me of living alone without an approved cohabitation plan, which was not actually a thing that existed in our bylaws or in any legal framework I could find. She even measured my curtains with a retractable tape measure in broad daylight while I stood there brushing my teeth. When I politely but firmly asked her to leave my property, she reminded me in a condescending tone that my lawn technically abuts common space, which apparently gave her the divine right of trespass in her mind. She told me she had every right to ensure compliance, and that resistance would be noted in my permanent file. I did not know I had a permanent file. Then came the rumor. She started telling people I was secretly renting rooms to tech nomads. She pronounced the phrase like it was a biohazard, wrinkling her nose and making air quotes. A neighbor forwarded me a next-door post where Bonnie had described my home as a hotbed of transients and sourdough starters, claiming she had witnessed multiple unfamiliar vehicles in my driveway. For the record, those were my parents visiting for Thanksgiving. The cherry on top arrived by certified mail. An official-looking letter announcing an emergency residency placement due to security insufficiency in Unit 12C, male occupant. The entire letter was signed by Bonnie in glitter pen with little hearts dotting the I's. It informed me that she would be moving in within 72 hours for an indefinite period to ensure proper household management. I refused the placement immediately. I sent a formal email to the entire board, copying a real estate attorney I found online who agreed to review my case for free after I explained the situation, and she stopped laughing. She assured me this was not legal and encouraged me to document everything. Bonnie absolutely freaked out. Within 1 hour, 2 patrol cars rolled up to my house for a domestic dispute that existed only in Bonnie's increasingly unhinged voicemail messages to the police. She had called and reported me for threatening her life, which was completely fabricated. I invited the officers inside, showed them my completely empty guest room, and presented a folder of HOA correspondence so thick it needed its own bookmark. I had printed every email, every fine, every bizarre notice. One officer, the patient one with kind eyes, asked me if the board had filed any kind of legal writ for this placement. Before I could answer, Bonnie burst in from the sidewalk without permission, tried to physically wedge her giant suitcase through my doorway, and declared loudly that my living situation posed an imminent peril to the community's quality of life. She said I was clearly unable to maintain a household alone and needed supervision. She handed the officer a document she called a provisional occupancy warrant. It had clip art of a cartoon house giving a thumbs up and was printed on lavender paper. The officer stared at it for a long, silent, almost holy minute. Then he radioed something I could not quite hear, but I recognized the tone. It was the sound of a professional exhaling all the way from complete disbelief to official protocol. He asked Bonnie to step outside. She refused at first, then reluctantly complied when he made it clear she was not welcome in my home. The city code inspector showed up the next morning. So did a county mediator who specialized in homeowner disputes. And because Bonnie had officially cited harassment and public safety concerns in her police report, the HOA's insurance representative arrived wearing a tie so crisp you could iron a shirt on it. His name was Gerald, and he looked like he had seen everything and was surprised by nothing, until he heard Bonnie's plan. We gathered around my kitchen table and made a neat stack of documents. Bylaws, covenants, minutes of meetings that went back 3 years, and Bonnie's homebrewed warrants. The inspector calmly pointed out that absolutely none of this authorized forced residency or unauthorized entry into a homeowner's private residence. The mediator peered at Bonnie through her half-moon reading glasses and asked which specific statute allowed her to cohabitate with homeowners without their consent. Bonnie replied with complete confidence, the statute of common sense. The officer wrote in his notepad, "No such statute exists." Then Gerald, the insurance representative, coughed politely and asked why several invoices for temporary occupancy kits had been billed directly to the HOA account. Items listed included air mattresses, key sets, welcome mats, and something called residency candles. He looked at me, then at Bonnie with growing suspicion. "Who currently has possession of the association credit card?" he asked carefully. Bonnie shifted in her seat. She claimed it was for emergency purposes only. Gerald pulled out another document. Emergency purposes do not include purchasing a bedding set from Pottery Barn listed as presidential quarters, he said flatly. Silence fell over my kitchen. Birds chirped outside. Somewhere down the street a dog made the sound of an embarrassed balloon deflating. A special HOA meeting was called 3 days later in the recreation center, where the air always smelled faintly of heated carrots and broken dreams. I brought popcorn because at this point, why not? The insurance representative brought a projector and a laptop. Residents filed in looking confused and curious. On the screen popped a detailed spreadsheet of questionable expenses. Board lodging deployment, strategic couch, security candles, and a recurring charge for locksmith on retainer. Then came the emails, pulled from the HOA's official account. Bonnie ordering master keys for multiple units, not just mine. Bonnie instructing the safety liaison to trial the Vale unit, as she put it. Bonnie coaching the treasurer on how to frame her little project as an anti-squatting initiative. It was like watching a documentary about a petty heist narrated by a scented candle. Residents started muttering to each other. Someone audibly gasped at the line item for chairperson pajama set, compliant. Someone else pointed at a charge for motivational door hangers. When the treasurer sheepishly admitted that Bonnie had threatened to fine him for financial disobedience if he did not approve her expenses, the entire room seemed to tilt. People started standing up, voices rising. One woman asked how many other homes Bonnie had tried to occupy. The answer was 3. 3 other single male homeowners had received similar notices but had thought they were pranks. The same officer from before stepped up to the front with an official clipboard and read words that made the air feel heavy. Criminal trespass. Credit card abuse. False reporting to law enforcement. Harassment. The board voted to suspend Bonnie effective immediately, right there in the middle of the meeting. The vote was unanimous among the remaining members. The officer escorted her out while she shouted at everyone, "You will all be sorry when your curtains mismatch and your property values collapse." She tried to grab her tote bag, but the officer gently redirected her toward the exit. Her giant suitcase thumped behind her on the linoleum like a defeated drum. The county prosecutor filed formal charges 2 weeks later. Bonnie faced misdemeanor criminal trespass, attempted unlawful entry, misuse of HOA funds totaling over $8,000, filing 3 false police reports, and harassment. At her hearing, she tried to represent herself and told the judge that she was simply protecting community standards and preventing neighborhood deterioration. The judge was not impressed. He asked her if she understood that homeowners have rights. She said yes, but insisted those rights were secondary to community aesthetics. He sentenced her to 12 months of probation, 200 hours of community service at the municipal courthouse cleaning and organizing public records, ordered her to pay full restitution to the HOA including legal fees which brought the total to nearly $15,000, banned her from serving on any homeowners association board in the county for 5 years, and added a mandatory anger management course focused on what he called compulsive governance tendencies. He also issued a permanent restraining order preventing her from coming within 100 feet of my property. When the judge read the sentence, Bonnie stood there in complete shock, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. "But Your Honor," she stammered, "who will enforce the mailbox font regulations?" The judge looked at her over his glasses and said, "Miss Harker, that is no longer your concern, nor was it ever your authority to enter someone's home." She was escorted out of the courtroom still clutching a binder labeled Emergency Bylaws, her face red with humiliation and disbelief, muttering something about unappreciative neighbors and collapsing property values.